When Cici Leviev first matched with Simon Leviev on Tinder, it felt like stepping into a fairy tale. A handsome billionaire heir with jet-setting photos, luxury watches, and tailored suits? It was everything the dating apps promised but rarely delivered. His profile read like a dream, and for Cici, it became one. At least in the beginning. Their first date wasn't dinner or coffee. It was a private jet ride to Bulgaria. Simon claimed he was the son of Lev Leviev, the Israeli king of diamonds, and he had urgent business abroad. As she flew in luxury, sipping champagne and laughing with his team, a bodyguard named Peter and a stunning brunette who he said was his ex and co-parent. Cici was convinced this wasn't just a date, it was fate. But what she didn't know was that Simon wasn't Simon. His real name was Shimon Hayat, and the life he showed her was paid for, not by his diamond fortune, but by other women he had already conned. A carefully crafted persona. Simon was a master of illusion. His social media presence showcased a lavish lifestyle. He lived in five-star hotels, wore designer labels, and never traveled commercial. Every post, every message, every interaction was calculated to paint him as rich, busy, powerful, and most importantly, too good to lose. That's how he hooked his victims. With urgency, wealth, and attention. Within days, he would love bomb his targets, flooding them with messages, gifts, and promises of a future together. He made them feel like the center of his world. But beneath the surface, Simon was plotting the next stage of his scam. The threat. A few weeks after the whirlwind romance began, Simon's tone changed. He called Cici in a panic. "Peter's been attacked," he said, sending gruesome photos of his bloody bodyguard. "It's my enemies. They're after me." The photos were real, taken from prior incidents, but completely unrelated to the danger Simon pretended to face. He said he needed to go underground and couldn't use his own financial accounts. "They're watching me," he explained. "I need your help." At first, it was small. "Can you book my hotel room?" Then, "Can you wire me $5,000? Soon, Cici maxed out her credit cards and took out loans. She believed she was helping her boyfriend stay alive. What she was really doing was funding his next victim. A web of lies. Simon's con worked like a pyramid scheme. The thousands of dollars Cici sent were used to woo the next woman. Private jets, Rolexes, champagne dinners. All paid for with stolen love and shattered trust. He ran this same cycle with multiple women across Europe. They all fell in love with the same man, and they all were scammed by the same ghost. As Cici dug deeper, red flags began to surface. Simon's diamond empire? No trace of it. His passports? Fake. His stories? Rehearsed. The more she looked, the less real he became. But by then, she was hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and emotionally destroyed. The turning point. Unlike many scam victims, Cici didn't disappear into shame. She fought back. After confronting Simon, she began speaking to the press, eventually working with VG, a Norwegian news outlet, to expose him. They investigated his history and uncovered a trail of deceit stretching back years, across countries. Simon had posed as the son of a billionaire. But in reality, he was a convicted con man who had previously served time in Finland for defrauding women. After release, he changed his name and picked up right where he left off, with Tinder as his new hunting ground. The investigation culminated in the Tinder Swindler, a viral Netflix documentary that shocked the world and pulled back the curtain on how easily digital love can turn into psychological warfare. But was it just a scam? What made Simon's case more than just a digital con was his manipulation. He didn't just steal money, he stole trust, futures, identities, and mental health. His victims weren't foolish. They were psychologically targeted and emotionally groomed. His tactics bordered on cult-like control. Love bombing, isolation, urgency, emotional blackmail, the same tools used by abusive partners and cult leaders. That's what separates Simon from a petty thief. He wasn't just scamming. He was breaking people from the inside out. And chillingly, even after being exposed, he didn't stop. Cici Leviev could have stayed silent. Many victims of financial fraud do. The shame alone is enough to bury the truth. But Cici wasn't just a victim. She was determined to become Simon's undoing. After sending over $200,000 in loans and credit card debt to a man she thought she loved, Cecily realized she'd been played. She didn't just lose money. She lost dignity, trust, and her sense of reality. But once the fog lifted, she did something most scam victims never do. She fought back. Red flags and fake promises. Even after emptying her bank accounts, Simon wasn't done. He begged for more, told her he was in danger, and that she was his only hope. But his desperation began to sound scripted, recycled, and unreal. When Cecily asked for payback or explanations, Simon grew cold. His sweet messages became distant. His affection turned into manipulation. And worst of all, he began threatening her. He called her selfish and warned that if she didn't help, bad things would happen. It wasn't love anymore. It was coercion. Cecily started saving everything: WhatsApp messages, voice notes, photos, videos, and reached out to law enforcement. But the response was lukewarm. The case spanned multiple countries, and authorities weren't eager to get involved in a relationship dispute. She realized if justice was going to happen, she'd have to go public. Enter the journalists. Cecily connected with a team of investigative reporters from VG, one of Norway's top media outlets. When she shared her story, and more importantly, her receipts, they were stunned. The VG team started investigating Simon and quickly realized the case was bigger than one woman. They discovered dozens of aliases tied to one man, Shimon Hayat, an Israeli con artist who had previously served time for defrauding women in Finland. Once released, Shimon didn't vanish, he reinvented himself. He legally changed his name to Simon Leviev, falsely claiming he was the son of billionaire diamond mogul Lev Leviev. He used forged documents, fake business cards, and counterfeit invoices to maintain the illusion. And most chillingly, he recycled his lies with precision. Each victim got the same story: enemies, danger, the need for secrecy, and an urgent financial favor. He was running a digital Ponzi scheme where new victims paid for old lies. The hunt begins. VG's reporters followed Simon across Europe, from London to Athens to Tel Aviv. They uncovered his real identity, his criminal past, and the vast network of women who had also been duped. They traced bank transfers, Airbnb receipts, and jet bookings. They interviewed hotel staff, security guards, and former friends. And they discovered something that made their blood run cold. Simon was still active. While they were investigating, he was already luring new women into the same trap. A united front. Through online support groups and social media whispers, Cecily connected with two other women who had fallen victim to Simon. Pernilla Sjöholm, a Swedish woman who thought she was just a close friend of Simon's, not a romantic interest. She too had loaned him money and was now buried in debt. Elaine Charlotte, a Dutch woman who realized the scam just in time and came up with a plan to turn the tables on Simon. Together, the three women formed an unlikely alliance. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were detectives, whistleblowers, and a voice for hundreds of other unknown victims. The exposure. In 2019, VG released a bombshell exposé titled The Tinder Swindler. The report went viral, eventually catching the attention of Netflix. The documentary, featuring interviews with Cecily, Pernilla, and Elaine, became a global sensation. Millions watched as the charming, jet-setting Simon Leviev was unmasked as a manipulative conman living on stolen love. Viewers were stunned by the scale of the fraud, the psychological tactics he used, and how easily he slipped through legal cracks. But the biggest twist? Even after all the attention, Simon didn't disappear. He used the publicity to rebrand himself. The narcissist strikes back. While victims were facing bankruptcy and depression, Simon was thriving. He sold cameos, launched a website offering business advice, and even tried to pitch a dating show about himself. The man who left a trail of destruction had become a twisted sort of celebrity, a true crime anti-hero who mocked the system that allowed him to walk free. Cecily and the others were outraged. He ruined lives, she told reporters, and now he's profiting off it? But the system was slow. Though he was eventually arrested in Greece and extradited to Israel, he was only sentenced for prior offenses. not the Tinder scam. He served just 5 months behind bars before walking free again. The psychological toll. For victims, the aftermath wasn't just financial. It was emotional and mental. Many struggled with trust, PTSD, and shame. Cici Lai even ended up in a psychiatric facility after suicidal thoughts overwhelmed her. "People think we were just stupid," she said in an interview. But he didn't just ask for money. He created a whole world, a relationship, a future. The Tinder swindler didn't use guns or violence. He used emotional warfare. His victims weren't gullible. They were carefully selected, psychologically groomed, and manipulated over time. And the damage went far beyond what money could fix. A shift in the narrative. The case sparked global conversations about digital romance fraud, gaslighting, and financial abuse in relationships. For the first time, millions saw how emotional manipulation can lead to devastating real-world consequences. Victims found their voice. People who once stayed silent stepped forward. And social platforms, including Tinder, banned Simon Leviev permanently. Still, the justice system lagged behind. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. By the time Cici Lai realized something was wrong, she had already taken out over $200,000 in loans for Simon Leviev. The charming jet-setter who had once promised her the world had vanished, except for the frequent, desperate messages asking for more help. Simon said he was being hunted by enemies, his security team had gone underground, and he couldn't use his cards. All the signs were there. She just didn't want to see them. Until now, Cecily's desperation transformed into suspicion. She contacted American Express, and what she heard shook her to the core. The agent on the phone didn't seem surprised by Simon's name. In fact, he warned her, "We've been trying to catch him for years. You're not the first." Pattern emerges. With the realization that she wasn't alone, Cici Lai began connecting the dots. She searched online and stumbled upon a Facebook group of women who believed they had also been conned by a man going by Simon Leviev. One woman, Pernilla Sjöholm, had been in a similar relationship with Simon, but purely platonic. They had vacationed together, shared dinners, and even talked about going into business. And just like Cici Lai, she had given him money under the guise of helping a friend in danger. The two women compared stories. Same photos, same messages, same voice notes. Simon had been running the same playbook across Europe, conning woman after woman with the same fabricated threats and staged attacks. He wasn't a billionaire. He wasn't the son of a diamond mogul. His real name was Shimon Hayat, a convicted fraudster with a history of impersonation and theft. And they weren't just victims, they were survivors of an international predator. The women fight back. What happened next was something rarely seen in true crime. Instead of staying silent, the women went public. They contacted VG, a Norwegian investigative news outlet. The reporters were stunned by the scale of Simon's scheme and how easy it had been for him to operate without consequence across borders. The VG team started digging. They discovered Simon's criminal past, including a 2015 conviction in Finland for defrauding 3 women. After serving time, he changed his name, created a new persona, and picked up right where he left off. This wasn't just fraud. This was emotional terrorism on a global scale. With help from Cici Lai, Pernilla, and another woman named Elaine Charlotte, VG crafted a detailed expose complete with interviews, evidence, and a timeline of Simon's movements. The story exploded. The headline, "The Tinder Swindler." Within hours, the article went viral, reaching millions. Women from other countries began contacting the journalists, reporting similar experiences. Simon Leviev had left a trail of heartbreak and debt across Europe. But the biggest twist? He was still free. The legal maze. Authorities from multiple countries had known about Simon for years. But his use of multiple identities, false passports, and transient lifestyle made him nearly impossible to pin down. He exploited legal gray areas and moved between countries before charges could catch up to him. Interpol had issued a red notice, but it wasn't enough. It would take a coordinated effort to stop him, and a public outcry to spark that movement. Elaine Charlotte, another of Simon's victims, played a critical role. Once she realized the truth, she decided to outsmart the man who had manipulated her. She told Simon she still trusted him and offered to sell some of his luxury clothes to help him get more money. She kept the cash and stalled for time, until authorities finally located him. In June 2019, Simon was arrested in Greece using a fake passport. He was extradited to Israel shortly after. But justice? Simon Hayat, aka Simon Leviev, was ultimately convicted in Israel, not for the hundreds of thousands of dollars he swindled from Cecily, Pernilla, or Elaine, but for prior crimes under his real name. He was sentenced to 15 months in prison. He served 5. After his release, he returned to Instagram, flaunting a new luxury lifestyle, private jets, designer clothes, new girlfriends. The justice system had barely touched him. But the women weren't done yet. Simon Leviev, born Shimon Hayat, had walked free after serving only 5 months of a 15-month sentence. Not for the crimes that turned him into a viral sensation, but for unrelated offenses in Israel. He was never officially charged for the hundreds of thousands of dollars he conned out of Cecily, Pernilla, Elaine, and countless others across Europe. But he didn't lay low. In fact, he did the opposite. He returned to Instagram, flaunting a lifestyle eerily similar to the persona he once used to bait his victims. Private jets, luxury vacations, champagne toasts, expensive watches, all the same props from the original scam. This time, however, there was a difference. Now, the whole world knew exactly who he was. Internet infamy. The VG expose had been powerful, but the real cultural impact came from Netflix's hit documentary, The Tinder Swindler. Released in early 2022, it brought Cecily, Pernilla, and Elaine's story to a global audience. Viewers were shocked, enraged, and captivated. The show became one of the most watched documentaries in Netflix history. Suddenly, Simon was a household name for all the wrong reasons. While some viewers saw him as a manipulative sociopath, others saw something more disturbing. A man who gamed the system so well, he practically walked away untouched. But the true twist in this story wasn't just how he scammed his victims. It was how he continued trying to cash in on his notoriety. He attempted to book club appearances. He signed with a talent agent. He even teased launching a dating show. While the women he had exploited were buried in debt and trauma, Simon tried to become a brand. And for a while, it looked like he might succeed. Until the internet fought back. Public shaming becomes a weapon. As outrage spread, so did a powerful digital movement. TikTok creators, YouTubers, and Instagram influencers began calling out his behavior in videos that racked up millions of views. Hashtags like #SimonLevievExposed and #TinderSwindlerJustice went viral. Users tagged luxury brands, warning them not to work with him. Every time he tried to go public, the internet pushed back harder. Booking agents dropped him. Platforms removed his profiles. He tried to spin the story, claiming the documentary was one-sided and that the women were jealous. But the receipts were everywhere. The voice notes, the texts, the threats, the fake invoices. His entire digital trail betrayed him, and it was impossible to outrun. In the end, it wasn't law enforcement that stopped Simon. It was public exposure. The real consequences. While Simon lived freely, his victims continued fighting. Cecily used her platform to advocate for romance scam awareness, partnering with anti-fraud organizations. Pernilla gave interviews about emotional abuse, while Elaine remained laser-focused on making sure Simon never conned again. Together, these women flipped the script. They weren't ashamed of being scammed, they were furious. And they turned that fury into fuel for justice. Each woman rebuilt their life piece by piece. They weren't reimbursed by the justice system. Their debts remained. But they had one thing their conman didn't: the truth. Their courage in going public not only exposed Simon, but also opened the eyes of millions to how easily manipulation can be dressed as love, and how romance scams are among the fastest-growing crimes in the digital age. A new kind of justice. Today, Simon Leviev still hasn't faced criminal charges for the cons documented in the Tinder Swindler. But his name is forever etched into public consciousness, not as a billionaire, not as a successful businessman, but as a global fraud. Romance scams have since gained renewed attention. Major dating apps have rolled out new security features. Victim support networks have grown. And most importantly, People are now talking about the psychological and financial devastation these scams cause. In the end, Simon's victims did more than expose one man. They sparked a global reckoning. Because in the age of viral justice, silence is no longer an option. Final words. The Tinder Swindler isn't just a cautionary tale. It's a reminder that the most dangerous predators don't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes, they slide into your DMs with a smile and a private jet. And the twist? The ones who brought him down weren't detectives. They were the women he never thought would fight back. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell.